utmost pleasure to welcome my friend, philosopher, guide, mentor, who has brought me where I stand today. From a naval officer, he has made me into a researcher who at least understands the iota of what the research means, what Indo-Pacific means, and what Indian Ocean region means for India. So my gratitude to you for bringing me to this forum. Uh, uh, so as I said in my opening remarks, India very, very badly lacks in the research mentality. We just take pleasure in scratching the, what we say, the surface without actually going into the causes. The point which has been brought up by General Chauhan so clearly, that so many problems are there, but nobody is interested in doing the research and bringing it to the fore. Therefore, sir, your topic, that how the quality research and the security of country dovetail together, will be coming out of your talk. We are indeed honored to have you on this particular forum, sir. Before I request you to begin your talk, I hope you'll give me the pleasure of introducing you for the audience. Group Captain Dr. Srinivasan has served in the Indian Air Force for 32 years and retired in 2018. He holds an MSW, LLB, and a PG diploma in international maritime law and PhD from Pondicherry University in political sociology. He is also SATS alumni of ICRC. He is an internationally published author with 13 book chapters and number of conference papers on governance, regionalism, political economy, women and armed conflicts, etc. He has authored two books, Peking at Peking, a book on China, and a book on the research writing, a complete guide. Apart from these, he has published four books as edited volumes on India-Mongolia relations, Africa, Asian geopolitics and borders. He is also co-edited the Handbook of South Asia, which was published by Routledge. He is also a senior fellow in Defense Research and Studies, which is a think tank on strategic affairs. He was conferred with Vishishta Seva Medal for his distinguished services of high order by the Honorable President of India. Sir, with your acumen and your expertise in the research and your noble initiative of mentoring the research students to come up and take up the research for our security issues, we are indeed honored to have you to speak to us on the research and its dovetailing effect onto the India's security. So before you begin your talk, I will request the indulgence from General Sir and Yashas. Yashas, I have got one of my good friends with whom I worked with in Indian Navy, a person who really gave us the capability of doing the overhauls of high-powered gas turbine engines, Mr. Stephen Says. He is a UK citizen. He is currently stationed in the United Kingdom, but at heart, he is more Indian than a UK citizen. I worked with him. It has been my honor. Steve, a very warm welcome to you, and we all are honored by your presence today. Thank you so very much. Yeah. Srinivasan, sir, the floor is yours now.
Thank you very much, sir. Quite a generous introduction. I don't know how much of it I really deserve, but it's been a privilege and an honor to meet General Bhatia and General Chauhan today. And I keep following them on various social media handles. And to some extent, I interact, but this pleasure of meeting is invaluable, sir. And to Comrade Deshmukh, in any case, he's a long-standing friend and a senior, of course. To Yashas Arya, who has always been a good youngster coming out with some very good initiatives. I feel happy to be part of this thing. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I do have a small presentation, sir, if you permit me. Sir, I hope the screen is visible.
Oh, yes, sir, visible.
Yes, sir, yes. Thank you so much. Yashas specifically mentioned that I must talk about research and national security. And therefore, I was in a state of little bit of puzzle because research as a methodology, as a subject is different. But then national security warrants that whatever opinions, whatever decisions, and whatever policies and programs that we come up in whatever level of the decision-making apparatus, whether it is inside the military or in the government itself, at the highest CCPA level kind of a body or PMO level body, the inputs that are given for making such decisions have to be based on impartial research. And I'm very fond of saying this, and all my interns know this dialogue, that a researcher, therefore, should be guided only by one single factor: objectivity. There is no place in research for emotions. There is no place in research for feelings like patriotism or commitment to the nation or all those things. Research has to be absolutely objective. That is the only thing which I would like to say about research. The General Bhatia sir, Chauhan sir actually gave me a cue. He talked about learning from history. And I think I will start with a little bit of history just to give a brief, this thing of how three nations have gone about building themselves into what they are today. The flags are here. Everybody knows which are these nations. How they have gone about building themselves into what they are today. There is only one single factor, if I may put it in a kind of a synoptic, a kind of a summary, one single factor that has led them to become what they have become. That is research. Just to give you, research means acquiring knowledge as well as, obviously, applying it. On the 6th of April 1868, Emperor Meiji of Japan came out with what we call today, historically it is known as the Charter Oath. Every Japanese citizen was required to take that oath. And we all know that Japanese society idolizes their emperor. Okay. He is the first and the last of everything in Japan, even today. And in 1868, Meiji's orders were meticulously followed, and all the Japanese citizens took one set of 5 oaths, which is called as the Charter Oath. Number 5, the 5th oath, is very important because that is the one thing which helped Japan to become what it has become today. Number 5 of the oath reads, knowledge shall be sought throughout the world in order to promote the welfare of the empire. Please note 2 words which are very important. It shall be sought throughout the world, but for what purpose? What we call as national interest, the interest and welfare of the empire. Now, what did Japan do? This is just a proclamation. Everybody took a vote. We all take a vote. We are all quite familiar with it, particularly those who are in the military. We are very, we have a vote-taking ceremony for everything, right from our commissioning. But then the oath has to be translated into practice. So how did the Meiji Emperor go about translating into practice? In 1868, after the nation took this oath, 5,000 brilliant young men and women of Japan were picked up. The Japanese government completely funded everything that was required, and these 5,000 children, students, were sent across the known world then. The known world was Europe and America. Their task was very simple. They are to study and master every subject under the sun, from literature to technology, from shipbuilding to whatever, everything, engineering, medicine, every single knowledge under the sun. These 5,000 people were tasked to learn, to master, and return to Japan and set up industries, businesses, open colleges, universities, teach, promote research, do everything that was required to promote the welfare of the empire. These 5,000 people that were sent became the seed from which Japanese technological and expertise in other fields grew. This is how Japan went about building itself. Coming to China, Emperor Tongzi, who ruled from 1856 to 1875, we all know that in 1840, now our President Xi Jinping is very fond of recalling those 100 years of shame. We all know that the Opium Wars commenced in 1839. 1839 to 1841, China suffered. Let's put it in one simple words. But Tongzi, who was the emperor, who became the emperor subsequently, when the events of that 1839-41 were over, he realized that one of the prime reasons why China suffered the way it suffered during the Opium War was foolish belief in superstitions. Chinese even believed that the British, American, French, German warships, in those days, battleships used to carry cannons, 16 cannons, 32 cannons and all that. But Chinese emperor and his advisors believed that they were superstitious. They believed that ships are firing, cannons. Therefore, they carry fire. What is the enemy of fire? Water. So they sent diviners, people who did black magic under the sea. And inside the water, they prayed for some miracle to happen so that the Western ships could be sunk. Obviously, it didn't work. It didn't work. All this, these are all historical facts. And China learned. They looked back into how they suffered. Okay, in the first point of the war in 1839, Opium War, in one single post, which was very critical, the Chinese lost 6,000 troops in one go. And they were just defeated by 300 Western troops, British troops to be precise. So they studied all this and they realized that it is knowledge and technology which is needed for transforming China. So Tongzi commissioned a brilliant man who was a graduate of Yale University, USA, by name Yung Wang. He gave him all powers that are required. He said, get knowledge and get technology. And the manner in which Yung Wang went about doing it is exactly the manner in which our Emperor Meiji went about in Japan. He sent people. He sent even tourists. He lavished money. They sent even, women. Everything. They adopted all techniques to get knowledge. And that knowledge was systematically studied. It is a historical fact that at that time itself, China had 13 treatises on war. 13 treatises on war. So under Emperor Tongzi and Yung Wang, they went about recalibrating those treatises and applying this to the modern era. Their modern era. And they obtained knowledge. That's how China formed. We all know the Beiyang fleet and the 4 fleets which China formed. History is different, but history teaches us a lot what to do. And it also teaches us how to avoid those mistakes. Coming to the USA, Franklin Roosevelt, during the Second World War, we know that the innovations, the technological innovations, of course, for destructive purposes, including the atomic bomb, but the technological innovations reach their max. We are all aware of that. But how did that magic happen? Because of one man called Franklin Roosevelt, who was the president of USA, and he had a very good set of people under Dr. Vannevar Bush, as the director of the Office of Research and Development. What did Roosevelt do? Just to give you a simple this thing. On November 17th, 1944, Roosevelt wrote to Vannevar Bush. This is the man. Okay, Vannevar Bush, Dr. Vannevar Bush was an acclaimed scientist. And again, it's a historical fact that if there is a predecessor to Oppenheimer, then it is Vannevar Bush. In fact, Oppenheimer and Vannevar Bush were very close friends, scientific friends. Right, okay. So Roosevelt wrote to him asking him about what can be done on these 4 factors. You will find that, like for example, inconsistence with the military security and with the prior approval of the military authorities to make known to the world as soon as possible the contributions which have been made during our war effort to scientific knowledge. What can be done about it? 4 questions. And whenever Bush wrote a 157-page reply to President Roosevelt, and 1 paragraph from that long report, and I strongly urge all the young scholars to please search and download. It's available in United States Department of State website. 1 single paragraph is very important in Vannevar Bush's report to the president. He said basic research is performed without thought of practical results. This basic research results in general knowledge and understanding of nature and its laws. The general knowledge provides the means of answering a large number of important practical problems, though it may not give a complete specific answer to any one of them. The function of applied research, on the other hand, is to provide such complete answers. The scientist doing basic research may not be at all interested in the practical applications of his work, yet the further progress of industrial development would eventually stagnate if basic research were long neglected. Now, there are 3 important factors in this which are relevant for us to understand the importance of research to national security or any other discipline. First is the basic research, which in research parlance we call as descriptive studies. Descriptive studies study a phenomena as it happened. Like our General Chauhan was saying, I studied Burma campaign. It's a descriptive study because the campaign is already over. It's in the past. Okay, a descriptive study. But that descriptive study is what helps us to go to the next type of study, which we say, he uses the term applied research. In research methodology, we say analytical studies. We apply that knowledge to the current situation, to the future. So we come out with applied studies, that is analytical work. Now, this basic research, which provides the formative knowledge for applying that knowledge to make an analysis of the contemporary or future events, both together result in what we call as applicable knowledge. We all know, I'm with the 2 such distinguished generals on the thing, of course, Comrade Deshmukh also. Perhaps I should not be saying, at least in the Air Force, we used to joke, saying that there are 3 types of officers. 1, like the back of his hand. Number so and so, line number so and so, tom. Second type of officer, he knows nothing about the regulations, but give him a task, it'll be done. Close your eyes, but it'll be done. But there is a third type of officer who is more valuable and who is very rare. He knows, he has the knowledge, and he knows where and how to apply it to get the results. So you'll get the result also. The third category is a very rare phenomenon, but there are many officers like that. So in this thing, we used to say applicable knowledge. This applicable knowledge is what we should obtain through our endeavor for research. We all know that policy making or strategy, development of strategy requires 3 elements. The academia, that means the universities, colleges, whatever you call the academia, and the think tanks. Then we have the private and public industry. Okay. Then we have, of course, the armed forces. All development, if you see, like today we are talking about, applying, we are going in for atomic energy, atomic electricity based on atomic power plants, because fossil fuels are generating whatever problems they are generating. But then the whole concept of atomic energy came from one atom bomb. We can argue that E is equal to mc square is what resulted in atom bomb. So it is theory which resulted in some practice, and that practice has led to production of energy today. That's how it is interrelated. But the fact is, it's the military's requirement which actually, phenomenal application. Like when we were serving in the Siachen area, Siachen Glacier area, we used to get a lot of scientists from DRDO and this thing experiment with different type of food that we can consume. So food security or food is also related to this, clothing, everything. The military needs everything, and everything can be applied for peaceful purposes. But these three agencies cumulatively contributing to policy and strategy need support. Some of them can be government sponsored, some of them can be privately sponsored, some of them can be a partnership between these two, but all of them require money. And that is where one of the critical problems as far as India is concerned is there. Like we have government, we have ministries and departments, we have labs and institutions, we have think tanks and independent researchers also. But look at India. India spends just 65 billion, which is just 0.7% of its GDP on research and development. USA spends a whopping 665 billion. These figures are as of 2022. China spends 556 billion. What do we spend? We are talking about Atmanirbharta. Where will Atmanirbharta happen without money? And it will happen only when there is substantial research and a focus and commitment for institutions which are providing substantial research. So this is one major challenge area which we'll talk about again. Thank you. All over, all over the world, think tanks play a critical role because they are either, most of them are either semi-independent or independent. Few are, of course, government sponsored. In USA, bulk of them are government sponsored. Okay. But all over the world, think tanks provide much needed fillip to promotion of research. World over, it is estimated as of 2022 that it's a study, actual study, 11,175 think tanks are there world over, out of which India has just 612. And out of this 612, we have only 19, which have some kind of a standing across the world. They have a world ranking. Whereas China has 240 of them. Some 1,500 and some 42 institutions in USA are, with the world rank, leading from Brookings institutions and all those people whom we have heard of. Okay, where do we stand? We stand here. In terms of numbers, we are quite high, but in terms of standing, that is because of the quality of our output. Now, what happens to the quality of output? University of Pennsylvania survey in 2021, which came out with the report came in 2022, which surveyed 11,000 out of 11,175. They surveyed 11,000 think tanks and broke them down into categories. They found that there are 7 categories in which these think tanks can be placed. And in USA, they found that 62% of the funding out of that 665 billion, that's 665 billion, 62% of the funding for the think tanks for research, whether it was technology or history, does not matter, but 62% of the funding came from government. 35% came from industry, obviously related to technological and other environment and medicine and all those. 3% only came from individual donors, which are rich people. Fine. Political research, they found, is the rising trend among the What is political research? Not just politics. It is the question of governance, which means strategy, which includes military strategy, economic strategy, social strategy, whatever strategy. Okay, so that is an increasing trend, but the funding came majorly from government. Okay. And in these 7 categories, just look at China, for example. Okay. Way back in 1949, I mean, just 1950, when 1949 China became China, PRC. And in 1950, the Prime Minister, Zhou Enlai, whom we are all familiar with, Hindi Chini Bye Bye, I know that hero of that story. Okay. He introduced what is called as 4 modernizations. These 4 modernizations were strengthen the fields of agriculture, industry, defense, science and technology in China. What is to be noted and a lesson for us actually is Zhou Enlai is dead and gone. After that, Mao died and a lot of people are dead and gone. But even today, like for example, Deng Xiaoping, who came later in 1980, in the late 80s, he became the president of PRC. He continued this 4 modernization programs and slightly adopted them for the changes that were taking in the world, especially in defense and science and technology. Since 2000, China has followed, it has always followed this, but from 2000, we find that China has sent 5.2 million students to study abroad. But the beauty is, these students, bulk of them are funded by the Chinese government. My son studied in Canada, he stays in Canada. His classmate, Chinese. You know what is my type of money that we have to spend for supporting our children who are studying abroad. But his Chinese classmate got every single penny from his government. 2 years of study, my son started working outside. This fellow completed his studies, took his degree, made his contacts, went back to China. Bulk of this 5.2 million students who study abroad, they come back. Same old model, please remember the historical example. And they promote R&D in all areas, whether it is in industry, whether it is in IT, whether it is in tourism, whether it is in teaching, everywhere. So the model is very simple. It's a historically tested and proven model. And the areas in which we are finding that, the research, the think tanks, the students who are going abroad in all these countries, we find that they are all focused on these areas. And these are areas which we know, each one of them is critical to what we call as national interest, irrespective of which nation it is. They are critical. And what opportunities or what challenges do we have? Okay. We have come out with a new education policy 2022. Very good changes have been brought in. No policy is perfect. There may be some shortcomings in that policy also, but in terms of like promoting NIRF rankings, in terms of promoting research, all those kind of things, the NEP seems to have very clear objectives. Fantastic. But then the question is, how do we integrate academia and industry? To integrate, we need funding. And with just 0.7% of our GDP on R&D, can we really do it? Challenge. Answer is there only. The challenge itself, the answer is there, and all of us know what the second challenge, which is also an opportunity, is our bureaucratic approach, both within and outside. Do not read the term bureaucrat as IAS, IPS only. We are all bureaucrats because we are the products of a colonial empire. So we are, being top down, adopting a top down approach comes naturally to us. The boss is always right. You can't argue with it. So this bureaucratic approach, especially our belief in top down, all knowledge rests only with the people who are at the top. Fine. But it's a challenge. We must recognize that we need to promote people who are worthy of promoting, who are capable of original, research and ideas. Give them opportunities, give them the space, and germinate those thoughts and see how we can use them. Because we have the wisdom at the top, we have the wisdom. What we need is information. What we need is a theory. What we need is a formula. What we need is a way out. So let it germinate. That approach, how do we change? Again, it's a challenge as well as an opportunity. How do we integrate universities and think tanks in national policy making and strategic planning? For the past 15, 20 years, we are all aware that National Defense University has been talked about. Periodically, we find one odd, newspaper item. That's it. What do we lack? We all know the answer. I don't have to give the answer. But should we really go full hog and formulate a National Defense University and make it function so that a multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary approach to all strategic issues can be obtained? What we need is knowledge. We need knowledge. Decision makers are already there. We have exceptionally good leaders, but we have to provide them. So can NDU be the change? How do we make it happen? Again, the answer is there only in the challenge. Fostering talent and allowing it to grow. I hope all of you must have seen the recent one movie called Pipa. 1971 war, that Russian T-96. I'm sure General Bhatia sir must have seen them in the Northeast, or Chauhan sir also. Okay. That one youngster is given that young lieutenant is given one task by his boss. He says, instead of 2, I want 3 people inside that Dibba. He improvises. And 41 Cav changed the course of the war, that all of us know. We have to give credit where it is due. And all because one youngster who could tamper with this thing and come out with a modification. It's a classical story because it challenges us to think the kind of talent that we have to identify and the kind of talent that we have to promote. That is research and applicable knowledge. We have many institutions. We have NDC, we have COR, we have Army War College, we have DSSC, we have CDM, we have fantastic institutions. Pride of the nation, there's no doubt. But what is the quality of the output, research value of the output from these institutions? Why I am asking this question, the second part of the question will be in the next slide. That is the last slide, incidentally. Okay. Why? Because it's not sufficient. Let's see what is needed to be studied, discussed, and acted upon within the confines of, let's say, the war room. Must remain there. But the war room itself needs knowledge. That knowledge can only come from these institutions. And therefore, there must be a open kind of a publication avenue where the faculty and the students are encouraged to not only do their, I'm aware, all of us are aware that they produce dissertations, but those dissertations remain within that institution. Some of them, which need not get classified, must be available for debate in the academic community, because there are inputs which are available here from history, from geography, from sociology, from technology. Inputs, they can be married. And that is how we grow our knowledge. So what kind of debate and what kind of avenues can we come out with? Question, of course, it has its own answers. Funding, I already talked about it. Okay. But one definite recommendation which I would like to, because this government, particularly in the last 5 years, 6 years, have come very clearly and very loud on CSR, corporate social responsibility. What is greater than the responsibility to fund and promote knowledge? Why can't industries do it? Why can't Ambanis and Adanis and Homes or Kaitans and Bajads and Tatas? Then of course, Tatas have got AFR, of course. But why can't the government integrate this? Okay, instead of spending it on some water supply scheme. By all means, please do it. How about funding research institutions? How about funding for research? We'll give you tax exemption. Why can't we do it? Because the amount of money that comes in the CSR bracket is colossal. We have Commodore Deshmukh, who's part of the corporate world. I'm sure he knows what I'm talking about. All of us know. It's colossal. Why can't it be used? We don't have to depend on government treasury to give out the checks. There is money available. So how about using it? Again, food for thought. It's a challenge and it's an opportunity. And the last of my slides, as I mentioned, I will just go down to the bottom first. The US Naval War College. If you go to their website, I've just taken only one example. If you go to their website, you will find publications. And in that publications, you will find faculty publications and those who undergo course, their publications. In between October to December is just, today's 16th. In these 2.5 months, there are 15 research papers. 15, 1-5. I have checked out IDSA just for one monograph. One. That is a comparison. It's a question and it's a challenge and it's an answer also. We need to open up. And all of us, with the two distinguished generals and the Commodore here, we all know that this Ladislas Farrago's pattern, Ordeal and Triumph, this book, 19 Stars by Edgar Purveyor, Follow Me, 2 volumes actually, by Major General Red Newman, and Dwight Eisenhower's Crusade in Europe, and of course our dear classmates whom we have to study in our IMA, AFA, Naval Academy upwards all the time. Don't we have any? We can say Arthashastra. Yeah, fine, good. But do we study? The Army has recently started an initiative called Project Udbhav. Fine, we are waiting. It's an excellent initiative. But we are 75 years old as a nation. It's always good to start late. But then if we are starting late, we have to hasten our pace. A normal march will not do. A quick march will not do. Maybe a double march also will not do. You have to think of something faster than 120 paces. So therefore, we need to look at all this, and these can only come from the involvement of the academia and the think tanks, where a proper grooming in research methodology is given. Even the institutions, our DSSC or NDC, they must call experts from outside to teach research methodology. The context has changed. It's not good enough to write in that same service pattern anymore, though it is good. But we need to evolve there also. We need to apply research methodology in order to find better answers, in order to seek and produce better knowledge. So these are all some points which I thought I must share, which is pertaining to this. Just showing one slide, of course, that was the last slide. In the world, these 5 are considered to be the topmost experts on China. You won't find an Indian name. All over the world, there are 217 sinologists. 217. Out of that, only 7 are Indian. Only 7. China is our biggest enemy. China is our biggest challenge. China is the biggest contender. We all know. All other thoughts on China are well known to all of us. But a country like this, which is sharing a border and permanently engaged in conflict with China, can it afford to have just 7 sinologists? It's a question. The answer is in research. The answer is in research. And with that, I think I will end this thing. I do not know whether I have posed more questions than I should be answering. but I could not do. I did not have the heart to attempt much of an answer because I do not know the answers. Okay. It's as simple as that. With that, thank you, Deshmukh sir, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, Yashas. Bhatia sir, it's been a pleasure.